Hello, hello, hello. We are live here on the Sprint Ride Option Podcast. I'm Andrew Pasquini, joined Jason. Jason will be here in a minute. We are live. We are here to talk 49ers Bears from Sunday. We've had a couple of days to digest, 19-10. It wasn't a pretty game to say the least. Very wet, very sloppy from both sides. And overall, I'll give some short thoughts really quick before we really dive in. And there's Jason right there. Hi, Jason. How you doing today?
I'm great, Andrew. Just ran in a little bit later here. Just had to get some dinner, put Averly down. But yeah, excited to talk about this game that everybody has been talking about and given every thought for.
Oh yeah, no, this is definitely. If you want overreactions, I don't think Jason and I are the right place. We're gonna try and stay calm because as it is, it's week one. If we're going off of week one, the Bengals aren't doing great. Their quarterback turned the ball over 5 times. The Cowboys aren't looking great. Things like that. It's a long season. It's an 18-week season. We're not here to overreact, Jason. We're here to just look at the game as it happened and then kind of give thoughts on what it could mean. I just, to me, I think let's get the obvious thing out of the way. The weather. The weather was the biggest story out of this game. It was so wet that we got the snow, the snow filter for the lines at the end of the game there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think either team really adjusted to it because it was just that sloppy. And the Niners were down 9 when it started coming down and flooding. And I even tweeted, how are the Niners supposed to get 9 yards on this, let alone 9 points? Like, what are they supposed to do in this situation? So, just real quick, let's get it out of the way. What were your thoughts on the weather and how you think it affected both the Niners and the Bears?
Yeah, both teams had to play in it. It wasn't ideal. The footing was like that, but again, I've got way bigger concerns with the play than the actual weather. Sure, it's a factor, but come on, we're not gonna sit here and completely blame it on the rain. But
No.
yeah, that definitely is one of the factors when you talk about this. And there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and weather is definitely one of them.
Yeah, obviously the Niners play had more to do with the loss, and I think in a lot of people's opinion, namely the penalties. I'm sure we're going to dive into that in a little bit. But Jason, would we be a real 49ers podcast if we just didn't automatically talk about Trey Lance first? Like what
Yeah,
are we even doing here? We've been doing this for 3 years now. We got to start with Trey Lance, right?
right.
So,
Well, I mean, that's what everybody wants to hear about, but yeah.
yeah, so we'll start with Trey Lance. 13 for 28, 164 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, a passer rating of 50.3. And Jason, he wasn't going to come out and be Patrick Mahomes. He wasn't going to come out and be Josh Allen. Games like this are going to happen. And for the 49ers, we've mentioned it before. They are in a weird place. They have a Super Bowl roster while also trying to build up an NFL quarterback, and it's a really weird place to be in. I'm not going to lose my mind over one game. I think he showed flashes in very good spots. I can think of a couple passes off the top of my head. I can think of a run play off the top of my head. Overall, so from the second-year quarterback, and I don't know, it was about what I expected, especially once you woke up Sunday morning and saw what the weather looked like. That's probably about what I expected out of Trey Lance on Sunday.
And I think this is what you're going to see on most Sundays,
Yes.
whether it rains, whether it's a dome, whether it's clear, whether it's not. And for everybody that is like completely out the window, I have to ask, did you really meant what you said when you were ready to go through the ups and downs, or were you just saying that because it sounded nice? I mean, look, I think the two plays that encapsulate the Trey Lance experience as we know it in week one of year one, which the story is not written, but
Yeah.
I think it's this. There's a layered throw to Ray McLeod in between 3 defenders on the other seam of the field, and he drops it right in there. One of the best throw of the game, and I will not argue with people. It was not that Jennings throw. It was that one. And then there's a tunnel screen to Deebo Samuel that he throws to his feet. Like, that's literally what you are going to get with Trey Lance. You literally are. I mean, there's nothing whether it's going to be a sunny or in a dome. Nothing about this game has changed the way that I feel about his potential. Nothing about this game has changed the way about how I feel they're going to be successful. I have far bigger gripes with other players on this team, and well, not the players. Some of the Yeah, players. You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna say that. I have far bigger
We'll
gripes.
say players.
I have far bigger gripes with players' performances than I do Trey Lance. I felt like that was kind of par for the course, and that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, and Wolf One Speed, we are actually live. Hello, I actually just waved my hand in real life. We are live right now. We will be answering questions as they come in. I know Friday, little different situation, first non-live episode. We are live right now, so we will take questions if they are here. Yeah, man, Trey Lance. Listen, Jason, both you and I said a successful season for Trey Lance is we look back week 1 to week 18 and say, did he get better? Well, if we're looking at the did he get better angle of this, solid start. Like a fine. We knew there was going to be bumps and bruises at the start of the season, so it's okay. There was going to be a start, good or bad, and this is more or less what I expected. And my kind of lazy take on this, like if I wanted to be real lazy with it, one of the two quarterbacks in the second half looked like they knew what to expect in the second half because they had 10 games started last year. The other struggled a little more in the second half, and maybe it could be because he didn't know what to expect because he didn't play as much last season. That's the very lazy take I'm going to have, and I'm not going to sit on it. I think that's something that could be discussed at some length. Mm-hmm. The second half was very not great for Trey Lance. His passer rating wasn't great. His completion percentage dropped. And yes, I understand that's when the rain fell the heaviest. Some of those incompletions were because of the rain. You got to get a little bit more out of the quarterback position in the second half. I think that was my biggest gripe with Lance. But other than that, like all of it was about what I expected, as I said.
Yeah, and again, when people ask like, "Hey, what's the stat line for you that feels like is a successful season?" There is none, because that doesn't necessarily mean that Trey Lance took steps. And what I walk away impressed with is obviously that throw, but little things that is going to show me his progress, like him maneuvering in the pocket when there's pressure around him and stepping up and then throwing. Like, it doesn't sound like something that's impressive. It's a 3rd and 9 that they completed to Ross Dwelly over the middle. But when you watch the pocket collapse around him, when you watch him step up and keep his eyes downfield and hit a laser, a dot to Ross Dwelly, that's the type of thing that it doesn't matter. Stats be damned. That's what you want to see. That's the growth that you need to see. That is somebody who is being cool under that. He was under a lot of pressure. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, too. And look, let's be also frank. This was the 4th preseason game for the 49ers. Yes, they had not played much in terms of everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Across the league, it's completely sloppy, whether they did, and a lot of them didn't play in the rain. But it's little things like Jennings running out of his zone into another receiver where, he expects Jennings to sit down the route and he throws it behind him because Jennings keeps running. Just little stuff like that, again, it's week 1. It's par for the course with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Par for the course.
We've talked about that.
It's not even debatable anymore. It's a trend. It's penalties. It's sloppy. It happens like this every week. Toss in the rain, all of that. This is what you get.
Yeah, and I think last thing I have on Trey Lance, just because it is notable, I'm not going to use the JG word. We don't really talk about that word anymore. I'm going to mention it. I know we joke a lot of the times where it's, hey, Trey Lance just did something that Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't do, right? The 3rd and 13 draw play for the first down run, that was like the very first, oh yeah, this is different. This is wildly different because that's not a first down. You're not even calling that play with Jimmy Garoppolo. So the legs are why I'm so excited for him. He looked really good on the ground as well. I think he was our leading rusher, and obviously that comes with a bad caveat with Elijah Mitchell being out 2 months, and that's another conversation we're going to have about the running backs. So yeah, Trey Lance, last things on it. About what I expected. I wish he was a little better, and obviously a win in Chicago, but it's 22-year-old quarterback in his second year. There's going to be bumps and bruises. We had a bump first. Maybe Seattle, things look better. Maybe when it's sprinkling in Santa Clara, because apparently it's supposed to maybe rain in California. It doesn't do that often. Apparently it does it now when the Niners are playing. I don't know why. Yeah, man, just let's see him grow from here. Let's see how he grows from this.
I literally am about to book a ticket for me to go out there Saturday. And I saw that it's going to rain. And I am literally sitting here thinking, I'm not going to that. I don't want to do that. I do not care about, I love this team, and everything, but I do not want to get rained on. It's just not fun. I'm not doing that.
No, it looked miserable for the fans in Chicago like that. As fun as it is to watch from home, that's because I'm sitting in my apartment where it was a solid 90 degrees in Sacramento. I didn't have to worry about flooding or anything like that. Being there just looks absolutely miserable and not fun.
Right. And again, this is week one.
Week one.
We're going to look back in a year or two and say, remember when all of this was happening? It's just, again, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to go through the downs, and love me at my worst so you can see my best, right? So that's the best way I could put it.
Yeah, exactly. And so Trey Lance, it happened. Game one under the belt. Let's get better from here. Go from there. Jason, to me, the second biggest story was the penalties. I think if you had said, Andrew, gun to your head, one reason the Niners lost to the Bears on Sunday, I would say the penalties. 3 penalties that extended drives. I know Dre Greenlaw was called for one. I know Azeez Al-Shaair was called for one. Charvarius Ward had one. And I think Kinlaw had one on a second down on the third touchdown. You can't have that, man, especially the Greenlaw face mask at the tail end of a run play when he doesn't have to get in there, things like that. 4 plays later, Dante Pettis, God's sake, Dante Pettis, of course it's Dante Pettis, wide open, finds a touchdown, and all of a sudden the game changes. Because, Jason, at the end of the first half, the Niners were up 7-0, and it was one of those 7-0s where I'm sitting here saying, this feels like a multi-possession game. The Niners defense is humming. They're getting pressure. It took Samson Ebukam one play to create pressure on Justin Fields. Javon Kinlaw got there the next play. Bosa created pressure all game. And then the second half, they just started leaving receivers open. But the penalties is what really opened it with that Greenlaw face mask to give them that extra down to get to the touchdown. And then having a Charvarius Ward holding on a third down to lead to the Equinemius St. Brown touchdown, things like that. Winning teams can't do that. And if the Niners plan to be a winning team, they can't be committing 12 penalties every game. Most they committed in a game last year was 10.
Yeah, and 5 of them resulted in first downs. Mm-hmm. So to put that in perspective, the Chicago Bears on their own accord on offense had 11 first downs. Mm-hmm. It was almost half of how many they were able to amass with their own offense. You can't have that. It doesn't matter the gap of the roster. It doesn't matter the gap in coaching. In the NFL, if you turn the ball over, if you have multiple penalties, if you blow coverages, NFL teams are going to take advantage of that. That's a lot of what you saw. But 5 first downs that were given on penalties, can't have it. But it's something that is frequent in week one. And to be fair, a lot of teams across the league were pretty sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, I made the reference earlier with the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Do you think that's what Joe Burrow's? I mean, Richard Dredd absolutely thinks that's what Joe Burrow's going to be.
He was having more fun with that than the stream. When we're calling the game, and he's like, Burrow threw another interception, man. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
I anytime I see Joe Burrow do anything now, I think Rich Madrid. It's amazing. But yeah, man, it's week one. I'm not obviously the penalties are concerning in the micro because they did cost them the game. Let's be honest. Not the weather, not Trey Lance, not the offensive line. The penalties and the amount of free plays they got, that's what costs the Niners. But I don't expect it to be a trend. It's a 1-week thing. Now, if we're still talking about the penalties after the Denver game in week 3, color me concerned, Jason. But I'm not concerned about it right now.
No, it's just, again, this is something, it's so crazy because shout out to Vish, man, because me and him have, and Andrew, we've talked about this in week one, how we would just, it's whatever with Kyle. I wrote that article on Niners Nation about it, very detailed. But Vish points out that in game 2, the team is much more polished, hitting on all cylinders, all of those things on offense. So, yeah, I mean, it's let's see if that trend continues, but you can't expect this to continue because they're too well coached to let this happen. I will say this. Dre Greenlaw needs to chill out.
Yeah.
And look, we're pro Azeez Al-Shaair. You know that. But the penalty, it's literally 3 guys are wrapped up, and you come in and you just grab the guy's face mask. Unnecessary. The play's dead. You don't get a tackle on that play. You're not going to get anything for that. I'm far more concerned with the things that I've been pointing out on film still happening. Pushing himself out of run gaps. Wiping himself out of the play. And then the final thing, we're talking about the safety, right, that's converted. Now he's missing tackles.
Yeah.
But he's a tackling machine, right, guys? Yes. He doesn't miss tackles.
Yes.
He had about 12%, 13% missed tackles last year. I know he didn't play much. Control the aggression. Calm down. Stay in your gaps. Follow your keys. Listen to the assignment. When Javon Kinlaw's in the gap, don't get behind Javon Kinlaw in the gap. He's got it. Get to the other gap.
Yeah.
That's
Kinlaw's pretty big.
That's not your assignment.
Yeah.
So this is a decision that's going to come down for the 49ers because Azeez Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw are both up for contract.
Yes.
And when I've said this over the years, hey, man, 2019's over. The stop of Seattle, that's done. He's got a large body of work of either taking himself out of the play or completely whiffing on a tackle. And also now this penalty thing, which was starting in week 18.
Yes.
I just clean it up.
Yeah.
You love the aggression. You want that. But it's overly aggressive. Control it, and just play your game. You can still play fast and play your keys. Look at Talano Hufanga, who was just literally acting like Troy Polamalu all game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Hufanga in a little bit. Yeah, man, and just in fairness too, Azeez Al-Shaair did have a pretty bad penalty on himself as well. The 3rd and 1 where Fields gave himself up. Al-Shaair came in late with the helmet to helmet, giving him a first. I think Fields got a first down, but it was an extra 15 yards on top, which is never good. So just in fairness, Al-Shaair had another pretty bad penalty. Greenlaw, though, the missed tackles on top of the penalties, that's a little much for me. And just the penalties as a whole is a lot. And for him to have 2 15-yard penalties, because he did in the first quarter have the late hit, which ticky-tack to me. But you got to, in that position where he's at, he's got to recognize that Fields is likely giving himself up, going out of bounds, and can't hit him at that time. So
That one I didn't like. That one I didn't like.
No, to me, that's a bad call, but you can't give a ref any reason to call it, right? And yes, bad call. I will agree with that, but he put a ref in a position to make a call. Sean, thank you for the donation. Called it last year. Should have traded him while his value was up. Greenlaw. Hey, should have traded Garoppolo when his prime was up as well. But hey, we're here, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens because the Niners do have contract decisions on both. Moving from the penalties now to another topic that when the numbers came out, I was a little surprised. At least the PFF numbers, and I'm not talking about the grades, Jason. So don't get me on that. The offensive line and Trey Lance had 35 dropbacks per PFF. 13 pressures allowed by the offensive line, which not horrible, especially considering when Trent Williams allows 3 pressures. That's not going to happen a lot, right? Like that's not a trend. The concern to me, though, is all 13 of those pressures came on 27 pass attempts where there was no blitz.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's a difference because it's 28 snaps, only 1 blitz per PFF. But when they're not blitzing and half of those non-blitzes are creating pressure, that's a problem. Like that to me is the biggest problem about it all. Like, as I said, the numbers were a little better than I thought they were. It felt like Lance was under a lot of pressure the whole game. But for them to only blitz per PFF once, I know a lot of people said they didn't blitz once. So once or 0, whatever you want to call it. And then to get 13 pressures, that's not ideal.
My problem with a lot of the advanced numbers over there sometimes are just like the entire game, but they don't account for the time when the player either improved during the game in a crucial situation or deteriorated at the end of the game. That's why the blind numbers, right? Like, forget the grades, because I told you that's completely subjective.
Yeah, great.
Do not cite PFF grades to me anymore. I explained to you the process is subjective. That is not something that is objective and can be quantified with stats. It's what someone thinks.
They're a good starting point for a conversation, but they should be nowhere near an ending point.
Right. So, and then, Trent Williams, it's a little bit jarring to see pressures for Trent Williams. Like, it's just like, and I've never seen him. So, what's funny? Trent Williams didn't play bad. We're just so used to Trent Williams literally being lights out that it was just shocking, right? So there's your good news, at least with that. Mike McGlinchey, remember, we're going to cite this over and over because I think this was the most important thing that we asked Dr. Narav when he was on here was, well, what do you expect from him coming forward? Coming back, will he be the same guy? Will he be the same guy that we like in the run game? And Doc said that he's expected him to take a step back at run blocking, but he expected him to stay the same because he'd be able to anchor, in the pass blocking portion. It's strange to see in a game that Aaron Banks plays his first game, Jake Brendel plays his first game as center, and Spencer Burford plays his first game. Shout out to him, man. Possible 3-star. Yeah. But the 2 tackles is the consistent thing that we thought we knew, whatever it is that you think of the both of them. And they were probably the two worst ones on the field at times. And that's just crazy, man. It's insane to think that the constant of what it is with Trent Williams for once actually he didn't have a clean sheet, and it happens. He's human. I expect that to not be continue, like again, just is what it is. But again, shout out to the Bears. I think they played a really good game. Dominic Robinson was incredible, man. And I think he gave the best quote of the game from anyone, not Jalen Johnson yelling, after the game and saying all that stuff about Trey Lance. But Dominic Robinson talked about a tell that Trent Williams has on how he kicks his leg out on pass plays. He's a rookie. How did he figure that out? That attention to detail is impressive. He had himself a massive game. And you can bet that if Dominic Robinson sees it, someone else who watches a bunch of film and has attention to detail sees that too. So, yeah, the O-line, again, that's something that we can't make any sweeping statements on right now at this point. It was week one. Again, it's hard to judge everything in the rain as well, too. Like, we're going to say this over and over. But, yeah, it's crazy to think that Spencer Burford was probably the best lineman all game.
Yeah, and I think with the offensive line, as with everything else, this game's kind of give and take. It's, man, the offensive line as a whole, not great. But you consider that Trent and Mike McGlinchey both weren't, up to standard because, like, as you said, Trent Williams didn't have a bad game. It's just we're not used to that. I looked at it last year. He had 3 games last year where he had 3 or more pressures allowed. The rest were 0s and 1s. He literally is either he had 0, 1, 3 or 5, whatever it was, right? So those are things. Same thing with Lance. Like, hey, there was good moments, there was bad moments. Outside of the penalties, there's not much give and take. Spencer Burford, for him to have no pressures allowed in his first game in an offensive line that was giving up pressures at every spot in the rain, A+. Like, shout out. We love it. BSA, if you have any firm opinions about week one, you had them in play. Exactly. That's the point. Exactly. I love that. That's a beautiful way to say that. Actually,
that's a bar.
That's a bar. Dropping bars. Yeah, man. Because if you go in with your thoughts, because you see it a little bit with Twitter too, right? Is people take certain plays and twist it into what their narrative is, but some people will take it on the same one. Tarvarius drop and say, we love the stats.
But I want to talk about this too, because look, PFF grade is their own metric. Yes. Pass block win rate is ESPN's own metric, just like QBR. Mm-hmm. It's subjective. Yes. It's still subjective. Here's 2 reasons that I'm going to explain it to you. One is, what exactly is the definition of a pass block win on the rep? What does that look like? What is the firm definition of it? Because
they have one.
That feels like it's a little fluid when you're watching the film, if you're watching the tape, right? Because what you might think is a pressure, I might call what a normal lineman does when there's only 2 and 2.5 seconds in the pocket. That. And 2, you don't know what his assignment is, how he's supposed to be protecting, what he's supposed to do. Like, you can see when a guy gets blown by. That doesn't, none of assignment, all that stuff goes out the window. But if you see a guy go into a different direction and move a different way and go to chip somebody or take somebody out, and maybe that doesn't go the right way or something, like, it's not always so black and white. Like, you can see when a guy gets blown by, but if you don't know the responsibility, and if you don't understand the what if you can't clearly define what a pass block win is on a rep, and you're just going to leave it up to somebody to dictate that, it becomes subjective in that way. And it's the same thing with PFF. And I'm not trying to like crap on them, but I told you guys, they have a guy, he watches the game, he grades everybody on a scale of -2 to 2 on each play. There's 4 more guys that do that. They send it up to that big room of scouts, and then they aggregate that score. Again, it is all subjective. PFF grade is nice to throw out there when a player plays well and say, hey, look, he played well, but it's not the end all be all. And if you just come and cite these numbers without telling me subtle nuances or things that happen in that game or situations, right? Because 3rd and 9, and you're lined up against, in an obvious passing situation against Robert Quinn, it's not as easy as everybody thinks. Like, it's like, oh yeah, just win the rep. But there's no context to any of these situations. There's no sort of nuance to what's going on. So that's why I take these with a grain of salt. But I'll let you talk about the definition of pass block win.
Yeah, so ESPN, their definition is our pass rush win rate metric tells us how often a pass rusher is able to beat his block within 2.5 seconds. Likewise, our pass block win rate metric conveys the rate linemen can sustain their block for 2.5 seconds or longer. So there you go. So 96% of Burford snaps, he held the pass rusher for.
And I thought he was fine. I literally said he was the best lineman on there. So I disagree with that metric.
Yeah. So, Flav, thank you for the donation. If you had to choose between pulling Trey for Jimmy and making the playoffs, or playing Trey all year and not making the playoffs, what do you choose? Oh man. For the long term, it's Trey all year because Trey's going to be here next year. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't. And I hate that this is what the conversation is. And Flav, I'm not blaming you. You're not the only one having these questions about Garoppolo because there's a lot of people having them. It's okay. In theory, bringing back Garoppolo, and I don't want to make this a long quarterback conversation, so we'll be quick with this one, Jason. The issue with bringing back Garoppolo is these types of questions. In theory, bringing him back as a backup is phenomenal. It's great. But now when Trey Lance has a rough game and a rainy weather, now there's conversation. And once again, not just you, Flav. There was a lot of very prominent media accounts tweeting out Garoppolo should be playing. But yeah, I would rather Trey play all year and miss the playoffs because Trey Lance is going to be here next year, and at some point, development needs to happen. So that's mine. That's my side of it.
I mean, I'm literally going to reiterate the same thing, so I'm going to belabor that. But here's the thing: is I don't think that people are going to be able to accept that. So I mean, it's. But again, in the offseason, when you said, everybody said, well, he's in development, it's a process, or there's going to be ups and downs. Did you really mean that? Or did you just say that so you could sound level-headed and then you were waiting for him to like come out and throw 50 touchdowns? Like, I don't think it really works that way. And I think that anybody who's been saying that, you're going to have to stand on that. And that's what you're going to have to use as your argument. But yeah, a lot of fans are not going to be able to take that just because of how close they were. So, I mean, again, it's week one. Overreactions are in full swing. Took myself a nice little Twitter break. It has been so nice to not be on there, man, at all, man. It's been really good, man. I've been sitting here watching Scooby-Doo with Averly, man. It's been a good time, man. Yeah,
Scooby-Doo's great. Scrappy-Doo and those up. Scrappy-Doo's solid too. I like him.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw some numbers out here real quick. Just the last point on this question, Jason. 18 for 33, 55% completion, 245, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Is that a good game? Would you say bad game, good game?
I can't say with stats, right?
Yeah, so that was Josh Allen's first career start.
Yeah.
That's nothing spectacular, just based off stats. 245, a touchdown, 2 INTs. Not much there. If I were to judge a career based off that one game, and should they have benched him for Ryan Fitzpatrick after that game? Yeah, sure, man. Why not? But obviously, over time, Josh Allen got at least a little better, I like to think. So yeah, man. And obviously, I'm not saying Trey Lance is going to be Josh Allen. Let's not make any overarching assumptions based off of this one game. It's kind of my point. Jason, those were my 3 things I wanted to cover. Definitely want to talk about the running back situation really quick. And this is more of a post-game thing than it is an in-game thing. Elijah Mitchell hurt. He's going to be out 2 months. So the 49ers running back room right now is Jeff Wilson, Jordan Mason, TDP, who was inactive on Sunday, and I guess Deebo Samuel. Welcome back to the conversation. And I'm going to go hand up. I was wrong. I said it would be very concerning if Deebo Samuel gets as many carries as he did last year, because that means something went wrong. I love offensive weapon Deebo Samuel. I hate that I ever jumped away from liking that and having that be my take. Offensive weapon Deebo Samuel is amazing to watch. But with the Elijah Mitchell injury, is Deebo Samuel RB1?
Probably. I mean,
is he? Yeah.
I mean, look, probably. I mean, you're going to see Jeff Wilson because they like him in pass pro. That's one of the things that got Trey Sermon out was, again, if you're not going to be competing, if you're not going to be contributing, running the ball, catching the ball, now you're not pass blocking, that's going to be a big thing. But I think you'll see Jeff Wilson on base downs. But yeah, again, this all goes back to what happened with Raheem Mostert. There's just that little lack of explosion that Kyle's missing, and he gets it from him. Sounds like that wide back controversy was a little bit overblown. Imagine that. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of 8
I don't like it either.
I don't like the idea of 8 to 10 every game. I mean, if you want to use him in certain situations when you know that you have an advantage or you're seeing something and you know where you can attack with Deebo, kind of like what he did with Mostert, where it's like the puncher with the jab and then you hit him with the haymaker because Mostert has that elite speed. Deebo just has such good vision. But I don't necessarily like the idea of all of that. I mean, he had a fumble in this game and a drop. I'd like to see him catch the ball a little bit more. I want to see him in the space, catching the ball. That would be good too. But again, they've got to do whatever they feel is best. So
and that's kind of the give and take with Deebo Samuel is he was electric in the run game outside of the fumble. And I can't even say outside of the fumble because that's a huge fumble. That's a red zone turnover. That's not good. But in the passing game, 7 targets, 2 receptions, 2 drops. Like that's not what you want. And you could even use the argument of, hey, 4th preseason game. It's probably the first preseason game for Deebo Samuel because he didn't play in the preseason at all. So that's tough. Marlon Mack was signed. I believe he was signed to the practice squad. So he's likely going to be elevated, I guess. I don't know. Do you go TDP over Marlon Mack just because TDP's been here a while? Do you go all of them? It's interesting. It's going to be an interesting choice for Shanahan come Sunday, but that's a preview episode question. We're still talking about the Bears. The running game, it was there. Trey Lance definitely adds a level to the run game as we expected. But the running game was solid. Elijah Mitchell looked good up until he got hurt. Deebo Samuel looked good. Jeff Wilson was iffy, and we didn't see Jordan Mason at all. But the running game was absolutely there, and Trey Lance just existing, I think we saw triple option. You know how exciting that was? We got a triple option out of it.
Yeah. So Flav says, Jason, you would rather not go to the playoffs with Trey than have a shot at 6 with Jimmy. Damn. Eli would have 0 rings if he didn't have that 3 chances. I don't know. They haven't won one with Jimmy yet. What makes you think this is going to be the year?
Also, Flav, I had that opinion.
Did I sleep through a Super Bowl win that Jimmy Garoppolo has delivered them? Because if not, how do you know that he's going to? I don't know, man.
Hey, what's fun is Flav. I also said I'd rather miss the playoffs, so throw me in there too. So, but yeah, man. As a whole, it's not a great start of the season. You don't want to start 0-1. Obviously, I'm not going to blow it out of proportion. I don't like it. It sucks that they're 0-1. I get it, but there is 16 more games in this season. The 49ers will be, despite I got ratioed last night, Jason, for saying I am concerned about the 49ers against the Seahawks just because how the Seahawks were last night. I didn't even say the Niners were going to lose. I just said I'm concerned. The Niners should be 1-1. They should be 1-0, but they should be 1-1, and everything will be dandelions and flowers after that. I think flowers, but
well, here's the thing. Funny thing, when you go and you look at that Seattle game, which, shout out to Geno Smith, Pete Carroll got his revenge on Russell Wilson. Yes. He was spicy today on the radio, but you can't win.
Seahawks were.
You can't win football games when you fumble the ball at the 1-2 times. That should have been 2 touchdowns. That would have put that game all the way away. Yeah. Funny little thing, and I'm going to throw this out there because I'm a dick and I think it's funny. They ran it twice at the 1, and they still didn't score. Ha ha ha! Russell Wilson. Ha 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 ha.
That was my first thought too. The fumble at the 1 yard. Was it Melvin Gordon who had the fumble? I believe
Melvin and Javonte. Unfortunately,
Javonte had one as well.
Javonte had a very, very, very.
I missed the end of the game, not to brag, because I went to go get a beer with Sour Death Sam. So that was the highlight of my Monday night. Not to brag that I met the most attractive man on 49ers Twitter, but. Yeah, man, I guess back to the Bears and all that stuff. It is what it is. And I see people questioning Kyle Shanahan's play calling, which is fair. But if you listen to the Sprint Right Option podcast or if you read Niners Nation, week 1 is what it is, man. Like he struggles with it. Jesus, thank you for the donation. Seems like the Flav is comfortable with just playoffs and not actual Super Bowl SMH. That's a tricky question, and it's fair.
And I think that Flav has a relevant point, like in that way. Like I'm not completely dismissing his point. It's just the whole Jimmy gives you a shot at winning 6. Okay, you can say that, but how do you know that that's going to happen if it hasn't happened? They had a historic defense in 2019. Last year it didn't happen. What makes you think that this is the year that all of a sudden it's going to come together? And I think that people discount this part. How many Super Bowls do they give out? How many Super Bowl winners are there per year?
I think there's only 1 every year. I got to confirm sources.
Sounds like
1.
Sounds like the teams that win have some things bounce their way, have some things go their way, and that is hard to do. It's not easy to just say, well, we got the better team, we got this guy, we're just gonna go get it. How many times had 31 other teams go home and don't win the Super Bowl every single year, and they could have a better team than that team who won a Super Bowl? They could have a better coach, they could have a better roster, they could have a better everything, but not everybody who's really good gets to win. I just don't think that I think that is so simple for people to say, well, yeah, I mean, we would definitely get into a Super Bowl to Jimmy Garoppolo. How do you know that? Do you know that?
Can I ask, I guess can I ask the flip to Flav's original question? Because, okay, let's say Jimmy Garoppolo is the week 1 star, because we're playing hypotheticals, right, Jason? If we'd rather have Lance, that means the Niners aren't making the playoffs per that hypothetical, right? So my hypothetical to Flav, who just donated, thank you for the donation. Just plenty of quarterbacks didn't win a ring until their third trip to the playoffs, but third trip to the playoffs.
At least you're correlating that to some sort of history. So I will give you props for that. And thank you for the donation again.
Thank you for the donation. Can I ask just a reverse hypothetical, not to spend too much time on Flav's point? Hypothetical question: would you rather win one Super Bowl? And this is my hypothetical, so you can't say it's not fair. This is my hypothetical. Would you rather start Jimmy Garoppolo in week 1 or week 2 next week, win a Super Bowl this year, stunt Trey Lance's progress, and miss the playoffs for the next 5 years? Or would you rather miss the playoffs this year, get a full year of development out of Trey Lance? And I'm just going to pull a random number out of my ass because it's my podcast, so why not? And the Niners win 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls. Which one would you rather do? Miss 1 for 3 later or get 1 and none? So, it's hypothetical time, and we love overreactions. We love it.
But do we have like a genie who's like, listen, these are the circumstances, you pick whatever? I think because if you're given those, I think if you know that this 1 year is development and you get 3, I don't think anybody would say anything arguing that. But, if that genie says to you, you're only going to win 1 and you've got to start Jimmy Garoppolo and for a fact, that's a little bit different. Like I think that people downplay how hard it is to win a Super Bowl, man. That's why only one team wins it, man. And there's so many things that go into it. So real quick, the spiel is this. Teams that are knocking people out in 8 weeks, they get an injury to their quarterback, they're out for, and now someone else, a number 4 seed who is getting somebody back later in the year, they start playing well. Teams rarely are who they are going into the playoffs. Shout out to last year's 49ers, 3-5, and then all of a sudden, they roll. So it's never just, they have the better roster, they have the better quarterback, they have the better coach, they're going to get it done. There's a bunch of circumstances that sometimes you can't control, luck, other teams, health, those things. So that's why when you say automatically just put Jimmy in because he's going to get you to 6, that's where I got to push back a little bit because you don't know what's going to happen. There's so many things that can happen.
I'm sorry. I'm abruptly going to change the topic here. I don't know why it's so funny that Tarvarius just commented Hufanga is the blame for that Pettis touchdown. And in my brain, I'm like, is that Tarvarius Moore just being like, hey, man, I want the playing time? Like,
I love it.
Put this on Hufanga. I don't know. That's what made me laugh. But anyways, back to the Trey Lance thing. Last thing I'll say on it, and we've said it before, patience. This is going to be a weird year because this is a Super Bowl roster, but they're developing a quarterback who's going to be there in the long run. It's Kyle's hat change. I think he finally settled on the one he had on Sunday. I feel like that's going to be the one.
That hat would be so fire if they took away the SF and they put the old school Niners helmet with the 1 bar on top of it on the side. Oh my God. They were this close to having like the perfect hat because I've messed with the mesh back on that one.
Dude, the one hat I don't understand, it's not to mention Jimmy Garoppolo again. Sorry, guys. Is the one Garoppolo hat, it's like red on the front, but it has like that white.
It's tie-dye. And Stafford wore it. It was terrible, man. It doesn't matter what team it is. It just looks bad. It's just a bad hat. And it doesn't matter about what team it is.
I miss the days where New Era just put the logo on the hat and called it a hat.
Right.
That was pretty nice. Jason, we've gone very off topic here, and that's okay. We Sprint Red Option Podcast, our podcast. We'll talk about what we want.
And we want to include you guys as well.
And we want to include you guys, obviously.
If you guys bring it up, then we'll talk about it. So, yeah.
Let the guy develop, as Big Dez says. 3 stars, first 3 stars of the season. And man, oh man, I struggled a little bit with it, not going to lie. But I think I have a solid 3. And I'm going to start with Nick Bosa just because it's really fun to watch him. He's really good. He had, I believe, 1 or 2 sacks. I'm looking at the numbers confirming 2 sacks or 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for a loss. He was in the backfield a lot. It just seems like every time there's a mess around the quarterback, 97's in there. So I'm going to shout out Nick Bosa for the first time in 2021, get him out of the way, or 2022, get him out of the way.
Sounds like a reoccurring theme. I think that's exactly what you're going to see a bunch. I'm going to give it to Spencer Burford, man. I think in his first game, all things considered, with the way that this game went, the weather, all of those things, I think he did fine. It's a reason that this team was so confident in him going forward. They immediately labeled him the right guard. That's not for no reason. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's on his way to getting a gold jacket, but you can't ask anything more from the rookie in his first start.
Second star, Spencer Burford. Who would have thought on an offensive line with Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams that Spencer Burford had the best day? And that's pretty much it. I don't think I need much more than that. Jason took the points. no pressures allowed on a day where the Niners allowed 13. He was solid. He helped Trey Lance stay upright. So Spencer Burford, my second star.
I like it. I like it a lot. Deebo Samuel's my second star, even though he had the fumble and he had the drop. Is that who? So is that your number one?
No. Keep
so
going.
I think we got the same one.
Keep going.
We got the same one. So yeah, it's Deebo Samuel, man. I mean, whenever he's asked to do something, 8 carries. He's the one who scored the touchdown. Looked great. For somebody who was a little bit rusty, still I think getting himself into shape. Still a dynamic ball player that we remember. Just keep the guy healthy. I don't want to run him into the ground so early. And Flav has one more.
We'll take that. We'll get through the 3 stars, and then we'll get Flav's last point. Who would have thought Jason Aponte, week 1 here on the Sprint Ride Option podcast, number 1 star? I think we got it. Let's find out. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3.
Talanoa Hufanga.
Who would have thought the Sprint Ride Option podcast? And hey, this is where we like to say, for at least 1 week, we're not going to overreact to it. We were wrong, and that's okay. He was very good in the box, and I think there's a caveat to this. 11 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, a pass deflection, obviously the interception. That is what we want from him, because when the Niners defense is 100% healthy with Jimmy Ward, that's going to be his role. Now, pass coverage, maybe some questions. The Dante Pettis touchdown, it seems like that was his responsibility. He lost it. There's definitely those coverage questions. But when the Niners defense is what it's supposed to look like with Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga is going to be closer to the line more often than he isn't. And what we saw on Sunday with him in that box, very good.
It's pretty funny that with Trey Lance, we're preaching ups and downs, but with like Hufanga, if he has like 1 or 2 mistakes in this game because he plays so well, it's like, oh man, this is you got to have the same sort of patience with these guys as well too, But I think D'Amico did a great job having him closer to the line, having him in spots where he didn't have to think. He fired. He looked like he was all over the place. That interception, it was him lurking. Oh, other quarterbacks don't see that lurking defender sometimes over the middle. So, yeah, I knew I had seen that somewhere. But, I mean, look, overall, good game. Yes, the Pettis touchdown, a lot of people are attributing it to that. I am going to stay away from that because I don't know the responsibilities. It did look like that. I think it's him, but I am not going to make any definitive.
I'm just saying what Rich Madrid said. And in my book, Rich Madrid word is law.
even with all of that, though, he still was magnificent, man. And he just – You gotta play him there, and I think the cover stuff will come. Like, again, when he starts to see more things on film, see how he's getting attacked, I think that you can play with instinct up there as well too. It also is gonna help, whenever Jimmy Ward returns as well too, man. No disrespect to Deshaun Gibson.
Yes. So Flav, thank you for the donation. This will be the last one we take for the day. We're gonna get out of here. I got a softball game I gotta get to. Gonna hit some dingers tonight. Flav, to my hypothetical, more Super Bowls for sure. I just want our best chance to win every year. Don't really understand why it's so bad for them to wait 1 more year when Jimmy gone and Trey's the best quarterback on the team. Then play him. My fine point. I don't disagree with any of it. Whatever. The issue is with just this is we went a whole off season with Trey Lance being told he was the quarterback. And then literally 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Garoppolo was brought back. And I think that's where that changes a little bit. If we had another off season like we did after 2020, where it was Trey Lance is here, Jimmy's here, who's starting, like what's going on, then maybe I could see the argument. But we literally cried. I mean, not we, Jason, but we as a collective, we literally cried when Jimmy Garoppolo said goodbye in that press conference after the Rams game.
Tarvarius is letting it be known that he is not, in fact, Tarvarius Moore.
He's not good. Good to know. I just thought it was so funny to see Tarvarius just with one comment saying,
"I love it. I love our fans, man. I love our viewers."
Hufanga wasn't great.
I love our viewers, man. That's so good. I love it.
So yeah, I guess to close that up, Flav, it's a little bit of a different situation where Jimmy Garoppolo was gone all off season, and then was brought back then 2021. I don't disagree with the structure of your argument. It's just at some point it was time. The Niners decided back in March it was time. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo had a shoulder surgery. They didn't get the picks they wanted, and now Jimmy Garoppolo's back. Maybe we'll come back to the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation in week 9 if Trey Lance puts together 9 really bad games. But until that point, I think I can comfortably say that this should be the last time we have at length conversations about the quarterback situation outside of what Trey Lance does. Obviously, we'll take questions. But for now, it is Trey Lance's show. No matter how you look at it, it's going to be Trey Lance on Sunday against the Seahawks. It's going to be Trey Lance against the Broncos. It's going to be Trey Lance in week 4 against whoever they play because my brain can't think that far. You get my point. The Rams. There you go. So you understand my point. So there you go.
Yeah.
Did I cover it? Did I get it?
Yeah, I think you absolutely did. And yeah, a little bit shorter episode, but yeah, we're in a time crunch right now as well too. I'd like to go finish eating dinner, and
Yes.
I got to write for Niners Nation. So you go hit some dingers, man. Shout out to everybody who tapped in today. Thank you guys for your donations. Appreciate you. Make sure you're here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. A lot of content this week. Tomorrow, State of the Franchise. Thursday, something. Friday, game preview.
And then Friday.
Right, and then it's already going to be Sunday again. So and
the Niners will be 1-1, and we'll forget about this.
I like that we called on the old live episode that the Rams were going to boat race the Bills were going to boat race the Rams.
We were solid on that. We were good on that.
Yeah, that was such a good one. But yeah, man, shout out to you guys, and make sure you subscribe at wherever you get your audio podcast. So if you guys can't watch live, you can listen in your cars to Andrew and I talk about football.
Perfect. Hey, man, make sure you subscribe. And also, NinersNation.com, Jason and Andrew, we be writing articles there now. So go check that out because great content. Go check Niners Nation out, not just for Andrew and Jason. Go check it out for all the great writers we have. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's ways to get content out. And Jason and I love content. So that's what we're trying to give the people. We got to give the people what they want. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners and stay level-headed. Y'all got this.
It's Seahawks week, baby.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.